listeners, you found Sanctuary's Team Talk. I'm Myrna Haskell, executive editor of Sanctuary Magazine. If you don't know, this is an online publication for women that empowers and inspires. Our focus is the arts, philanthropical pursuits, health and wellness, travel, community, and culture. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. With me today is Dr. Sherry Kelly, whom I've known a long time. She is a licensed clinical psychologist, a clinical neuropsychologist. She is also the founder of Mind and Heart Coaching and co-founder of Positivity Teens, which hopefully many of you know about because she's been on a show or two with us with her co-founder daughter, Caitlin Kelly. So anyway, it's so great to have you, Sherry. Thanks so much for spending a little time with us today.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here.
I know. And I hope it comes through to listeners and readers, but, I love our team. We all work so well together, and I have a connection to each and every one of you. So Sherry has been involved in the magazine for a while. Now she has become a panel expert for us in the areas of family relationships and crisis counseling, but she has written for us before. She's been on a couple of the Coffee and Conversation episodes. As I mentioned before, she's been on with her wonderful daughter, Caitlin, talking about team issues, particularly in the month of August when we have Focus on Youth. So we're so appreciative of her and her expertise. But I want to start out by saying how I met her. And that was, I think, over 20 years ago now. I'm maybe aging us just a tad, but it might even be 25 years ago, because I know it was during the time that I was a freelancer and I was writing for magazines across the country concerning childhood behavior, teen behavior and well-being. And I probably interviewed you, Sherry, for at least a half a dozen articles.
I think so, and you're giving away our age.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know. Everybody else is getting older except for us, right? But anyways, so we had a history together. And then when I started Sanctuary Magazine, I contacted you, and slowly but surely, Sherry just very easily started becoming part of our community. And, her spirit and her unbelievable expertise in so many areas of psychology and neuropsychology has really helped us in the magazine as well. But we love having you, and we're so honored to have you as part of the team.
Thank you.
Would you like to share an accomplishment or two that you would let listeners know that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, and it's a fairly recent one, and it's an accomplishment I wish I didn't have. I've been working since February 27th with colleagues in Ukraine. And my work in Ukraine over the past year has demanded everything I ever trained for. All aspects of my training, all of my experience has had to come together to do the crisis work, the training for crisis workers, the training for nurses and doctors, the training for mothers who are raising children in a war zone.
I can't imagine, Sherry.
I have done a lot of webinars for workers in Ukraine over the past year, and it's been an honor and a privilege to work with them, and was texting with one of my psychology colleagues this morning at 3:45 a.m. my time. So I really believe that is my greatest accomplishment, because it brings together everything I've ever trained for a very important purpose.
Yes. Yes. And I heard you say that you are training those who can help on the front lines and actually help inside the country, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how many people you've trained up to this point, approximately?
I think probably, I'm going to say probably over 300.
Wow.
I think the most intense training I did was of mothers, and I actually think there were more than 300 mothers in that one webinar I did. It was in a train station that was serving as a bomb shelter. And This was in March. And they were living there with their children. And my colleague and I did a webinar for mothers in how to do crisis management with their children in a war zone.
Oh,
Uh,
and they
so
must be, are these moms, I mean, I'm just trying to picture, are they setting things up so that they're teaching their children as a community? They're working together probably to try to keep things as normal as they possibly can in this terrible, terrible situation with their kids, especially their really young kids, right?
well,
I
that's
mean,
one we talk about is what do you do as a mom in a crisis? And there's certain commonalities, no matter where you are in the world, as a mom, and you're trying to protect your child in a crisis. One of the things that has happened since last March, when I spoke with them, is that many mothers have left the country. They're with their children, they're separated from family members. And now winter set in, and there's great hardship because there are restrictions on the number of hours that you can get electricity or internet. So, for example, I have colleagues that might have only 4 hours a night of electricity. They're depending on the heat of their fireplace to keep warm. So it's a real hardship that we don't always see in the media here. The human factor involved.
right, that's right. And I just can't, I mean, it's been going on so long now. You know, in the beginning, I'm sure it was just like a matter of reacting initially. And now it's that idea of who knows how long it's going to last kind of thing that must be really, really tough in terms of their psyches, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yes. When you don't, know when it's going to be over, you can't see an end in sight. So during those times, you put a destination in your own mind of where you want to be when this is over and what you're
well, that's just a wonderful, it is definitely something to be proud of. And I know you as a really, truly giving person. So it actually doesn't really surprise me that you're doing all you do and you're up in the middle of the night with all of this. And you've been spending so many hours and hours on helping the people over there, particularly the moms. So thank you for everything you do for that, Sherry. It must make you feel good in your heart that you're doing something personally to
yeah,
help.
we all have to, find meaning and purpose in our lives. That's one of the
Yes.
that, really makes life worth living.
That's right. That's right. And it's an important topic to talk about too when it's getting close to the holidays, right? Which should be about giving. Every month of the year should be about giving, but
Yeah,
I know a lot of people are thinking about it during holiday times. So,
and giving to yourself.
yes, yeah. Well, let's lighten it up, I guess, just a little bit. So we have part of this program is that we ask team members to pick from kind of a bucket of fun questions that they can answer so that our listeners can get to know a little bit more intimately, I guess, with some fun facts. So the first question I wanted to ask you, if there were a decade in history that you would love to return to, what decade would that be and why?
Oh, well, this is dear to my heart. I would probably want to return to the 1700s in the USA. And as you know, I love the Hudson River Valley. It is
Yes.
my favorite place to go for my history treks. I've probably been up and down Route 9 a million times. I know it very well. I go up and down, the Hudson just for fun to look at all the historic sites and track the maps of the Revolutionary War. So I love that period of history. I used to teach history many years ago. I taught AP US in
Okay.
Concord, Massachusetts, before I became a psychologist. So that is the time I would go. I can only imagine how exciting it would have been for the start of this country. And really, the strength of the women during that time is amazing. So that's where I would go back.
And that didn't always get talked about, as we know, back in the day, right? I mean, the female role in many, many of these transformational times wasn't always something that was in the forefront of our history books, but I'm glad you brought that up because there's so many things that happened along that time that wasn't just about the men on the battlefield, but things that were happening behind the scenes and women that really had an important role during that time. So I could see you back then, Sherry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna have to take you on a little trek one day.
I would
Uh,
love it. I would love it. And
just,
you could pretend that I'm in your history class. And I love history now a lot more than I did when I was actually in school as a teenager. I loved to write and read, and I loved the arts and history I liked, but it wasn't something that I was quite that passionate about, much more so now. So definitely would be something I would be into. So let's like pencil that in somewhere. But anyway,
okay.
my next question for you is if you had a Saturday to binge watch something on TV, and I guess if is the operative word there, right? With how busy you are. But if you had a full Saturday to just relax and binge watch something on TV, what would it be?
Oh, that's easy. Because I do it whenever I can. I would just binge watch all those shows on HGTV. Love it or list it.
I love it or list it.
Oh, I would binge watch that. That's my idea of just having a relaxing day.
And so you love interior design and you like to renovate and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, I love doing all that. I've had the opportunity to actually renovate a historic home. Um,
I bet you that was quite the undertaking, right? Because you're
yeah,
trying to keep the history but freshen things up, and then you have to worry about all those things that might go wrong, like right? Like who's had the home? How many people have had the home over time, right? And how many like Rube Goldberg things happened where people were changing electric when they didn't have licenses and different stuff like that, right? So
yeah.
it's a true, besides just the design, it's a true undertaking in
Oh,
terms of
it's a treasure hunt, and
yeah.
in the house that we redid, the original roof was on. So they had 6 layers of roofing, and it sort of gave us a hint of what the first roof was. So we went back to that. And then there's all these codes, as you know, where you have to keep to a historic canon, but then you also have to meet the fire safety code and get to
Right.
see it. So it's a
The
balancing.
contemporary safety codes, but then also keep the historical aspects. Was that home a listed historic building at the
It
time?
was No, it was not a plaque. It was not a plaqued house. So we were actually lucky because we had less, um, I guess, restrictions and less hoops to jump through. But it was a house with relatively low door frames and ceilings. So it's a good thing I was short.
That's so cool though, right? Like you go back and we when my children were growing up, we took them to a lot of these places like Colonial Williamsburg and these historical places, where the staff dresses up from the times and all of that. When you go into these, school house places with the seats or into something that they furnish, with the old furniture, and you see how low everything is and how short the beds are. It's really amazing to think that we've grown so much, like literally grown so much since like the 1600s and those times.
Yeah.
Everything's so much bigger now. Yeah, I know. That fascinates me, that kind of thing. Did you ever find anything like in a wall that you may have taken down, anything like historical or a diary from like someone who lived there years before or anything cool like that?
We did find a secret room, and I was hoping that there'd be a lot of money in it, and there wasn't. And what it turned out to be, we opened out the walls, and there were old newspapers inside and old cans. And it turned out to be a room where at one point they'd stored trunks. It was a store
Wow.
for trunks, and that was it. So we didn't find the money to do the renovation inside that secret room,
But it's
unfortunately.
still kind of cool to see all of that, and to be able to sort of visualize in your own mind what was going on. And I don't know how they, in terms of like trunks and even like the old-fashioned suitcases from hundreds of years ago, I don't know how they lugged that stuff when you think about it. Oh my
I,
goodness.
those very small stairs, and it was, sort of, it took a lot of people.
Yeah,
And
very narrow entryways too, and narrow stairwells, right? Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Okay, that's cool. Well, it doesn't surprise me that you renovated an historic home based on the fact that you love history so much. So it all goes together, right?
yes, exactly.
So if Ms. Sherry was to write an autobiography, what would the name of it be and why?
Oh gosh. Okay, Mary, get ready because we might have to do a radio show about this.
Okay.
I would call it Shrink Wrapped. And it would,
Oh, shrink wrapped. I love it.
and it would be about the things I've learned about life and parenting from being a psychologist.
And I bet you that's like an absolute ton of stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
I just can't imagine with all of the different areas
yeah,
you've delved into. It's
yes,
so many things, folks. If you go back and you look into Sanctuary and you look up Dr. Sherry Kelly, you'll see the various different programs I've had her on. And I mean, she knows all about, the brain and behavior. And there's just so many different things. And with all of the hundreds and hundreds of people whom you've worked with that are clients, but also for all the speaking engagements
yeah,
you've had that you've talked to, that's more than one book, I think.
yeah, and research. So you all together, and there's so much that you learn from being with people, not in books, but just from talking to people. That's what I would like to share.
Oh, that would be great. And I mentioned speaking as, now that we're coming out of the pandemic and we're into more of a just cautionary kind of situation that we're in now. Are you available at all or have anything planned for speaking engagements on any topic? I know how busy you are with the work you're doing with the people of Ukraine. So I
Yeah,
wasn't sure if that was something, but if there is, you can let our listeners know.
thank you. I love doing in-person workshops, especially now that restrictions have lifted. And I am available. I recently did a workshop for a group of teenagers, girls who were Girl Scouts, and it was really wonderful.
I'm
Um,
sure.
and in person, I'm also doing a workshop for business executives about how do we cope in a world with, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's called a VUCA world. So
What's it
how
called? Say that again, Sherry. What's that called?
volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that VUCA stands for VUCA.
Okay.
So how do we manage a company? How do we become leaders today in a world that's a VUCA world? Full of so much uncertainty, so much volatility, complexity, ambiguity.
And that uncertainty that we had that was so super in our face during the beginning of the pandemic when nobody knew what was going on and all of that, it hasn't gone away. It's like lingering, isn't it? It's lingering with so many people and in just our general culture.
Yes, it is. There's so much cynicism in our culture and negativity. It permeates really everything that we do. And the danger is that we become complacent with it, that we think it's normal. And we don't want that.
No.
We want to be aware of the decisions and the opportunities that are out there, and to learn how to focus on solutions, not just on the problems.
Yes, I love that. Focus on the solutions. Yes, good. Really, really, really good advice. Anything else new with Dr. Sherry Kelly that you'd like to tell listeners? Any new plans that you have perhaps for 2023 or just anything else you'd like to share?
Well, thank you. So I'm hosting an interesting series of talks with young people via the web. And so I would love to invite our listeners, if you have kids, grandkids, teenagers through early 20s, we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. We're trying to put together a series of fireside chats to find out what's top of mind with young people from around the world. So I'm really excited about that.
So are you collecting, questions and topic ideas from the public before this all starts, Sherry, then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and then
Oh,
how
we
we
can definitely, we'll put that out in Sanctuary.
thank
See if we
you.
can get, that would be great. And
Yeah.
so do you have an approximate sort of projected date for this starting? It sounds like it's going to be a series, I think I
Yeah,
heard you say.
first one's going to be at the end of January.
Okay.
Next one's going to be probably at the end of February.
Okay, great, great. Oh, that's awesome. I definitely think our community will be interested
Yeah.
in that.
I don't want to take the pulse of what's going on with young people. Their lives have just been so upended, and all the research that's been done on the mental health impact of COVID shows that young people have been impacted the most in terms of their mental wellness.
Yeah. And I mean, everything that went on with the schools and delays and things and missed milestones and all of that for the young people I don't even think we even realize the extent of it yet, or many of us don't. I'm sure you do more because you do the research and you're reading up on it and you're talking to so many different young people about it. But I think the general public doesn't really even realize yet how bad it is. How those kids, what do you think the ages were between, like, maybe in particular middle school and high school, making those major transitions into college life away from home, and major developmental transitions in particular, it really hurt, right?
Yeah, and not only because of the loss of schooling and their academic skills being behind, but just their social emotional development being derailed. The
Yeah.
other hard hit group is between 20 and 30, because these are young people that were set to start their careers. And maybe they were in college when COVID hit, they graduated or left college at a time when they'd spent 2 years maybe online. They didn't get to have work experience, internships. They didn't date or socialize. Maybe they started their career virtually, uh,
Right.
and in isolation, working out of mom and dad's house or out of an
Which is so different, isn't it, than, physical in-person collaboration. I
apartment.
always say that my editors are not necessarily close to me where I can meet them all of the time. One of them is, but two or three of them aren't. And so we always make sure that once or twice a year, besides all the Zoom calls and the phone calls and the emails, that we get together as a group to work in person. It usually happens down in New York City. And I always tell them, we get like so much done in these in-person group collaborative meetings
I think,
compared to 20 email back and forths, or
yeah,
5 Zoom call meetings. There's just something about being together, the energy that you can tap off of in the room. I think particularly with women too, right?
yeah,
It's just so much better. I
yeah.
love the in-person thing. I mean, this is a great tool we have. Look, I can talk to you right now, right? You're not in my backyard right now. And I could say, hey, Sherry, and we can have this wonderful virtual conversation that our readers throughout the country and outside the country can see you and hear you and learn about you, right? Which is wonderful. But there is something to that in-person thing too. That's so important. So I'm so glad you brought that up. We need
Yeah.
more of that. And hopefully, things won't stay too virtual. I kind of hope to see that the virtual world is used as an arm and a tool and a helpful tool, but not the be all and end all of everything for us for the future. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Technology, you know, should not replace relationships. It can enhance relationships, but it should not replace it.
Oh, that's perfect. That's a post-it quote for Sanctuary, Sherry.
There you go.
Spoken by Sherry Kelly. Okay, Sherry. Well, we'll sign off now, but this is fabulous, and I'm so glad you were willing to come on with me and share a bit about yourself so our readers could get to know you a little bit better, and our listeners, of course. So
Thank
I'll
you.
close as I always do by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. And Sherry and I and the rest of the team would like to wish all of you a happy and healthy holiday season and all the best in the new year as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, much love to you, my dear friend. I hope to see you in person soon.
Yes, me too. Thanks, Sherry. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.